You're watching your local news leader. This is WCIA 3 News at 6.
There's all sorts of people that are against the mandate.
Requiring teachers and school staff members to be vaccinated against the coronavirus continues to be a controversial topic. Thanks for joining us. I'm McLeod Hageman. Jennifer has the night off.
I'm Jessica Coons. That controversy has been around since the governor announced the mandate on August 26th. Since then, there's been pushback from some educators. We've heard stories of teachers speaking against the mandate, and at least one teacher was fired. But when you look at the numbers, how much has the vaccine requirement actually affected the staffing levels in our schools? Target 3 investigative reporter Renee Cooper is here. So Renee, what does your research tell us?
Well, I spent a good bit of time in the last month looking through school district spreadsheets and pushing for those answers. What I can tell you is resignations at a couple of our largest central Illinois school districts are definitely up following the governor's announcement. But that doesn't tell the whole story.
My mom calls me a round peg in a round hole, and I love teaching.
After 12 years teaching at Springfield Southeast High School, Cadence Cohen says she was put on unpaid leave by the school district for not complying with the state's vaccine mandate for educators.
And that made me nervous and made me decide that that was going to be the line in the sand, that I would do the best I could to get them to stop with the mandates.
Cohen is vaccinated. She got her shots before the mandate was even announced, but she refused to submit proof.
Walk me through kind of your thought process and why it was rather than staying at school, getting your paycheck, and handing over the card versus keeping it to yourself and having to.
Because no one would listen. I have had multiple teachers that do teach in the building that I teach in reach out to me in support of what I'm doing and thanking me because they were not in a financial situation to be able to do what I did.
In Springfield, the number of school staff that resigned or were fired between the vaccine mandate announcement on August 26th and October 1st was more than double the number from 2020. About 29 this year versus 12 in that time period last year, about 24 in 2019. In Champaign, the numbers tell a similar story. Approximately 54 school staff quit or were let go, compared to about 22 in 2020 and 31 back in 2019. Over in Decatur, things didn't change much year over year. But these stats don't come with an explanation, so I reached out to the school districts to clarify how many staff members actually left as a direct result of the mandate. Champaign Schools said, quote, "While we are not going to speculate, we do not believe that the vast majority of resignations were related to the governor's mandate." In Decatur, the school district said, quote, "We have not terminated any employees because of the mandate, and we have zero anecdotal or written reasons given in resignation letters that employees resigned as a result of the mandate." A Springfield Schools representative told me, quote, "We are not aware of any resignations associated with the mandate. But we do know of one teacher who was let go for failure to comply."
Ultimately, I cannot put my paycheck over my principals.
Middle school band teacher Kingsley Keys was fired at a Springfield Board of Education meeting last week.
We get a pretty good idea of what's happening on the ground in our schools.
Bridget Shanahan represents the Illinois Education Association. It's the largest union in the state, representing more than 135,000 educators.
We know that in nearly every area of the state, a majority of our members are vaccinated.
She estimates 80%.
We're actually an education employee shortage that has been happening since before COVID. In 2017, we had 2,000 unfilled positions. And in 2021, we have 4,100. So we are sorely lacking in the number of adults in our schools, which is impacting the education that our students can receive.
Shanahan says the pandemic has driven even more teachers and staff out of schools, but for reasons far beyond and before the vaccine mandate. In both Urbana and Danville, about twice as many people resigned in the first month of the 2020 school year compared to this year. The school districts tell me the mandate was not a reason for any of them. In fact, a poll of more than 1,300 IEA members a year ago showed a third of educators were considering leaving the profession because of pandemic pressures.
Any idea how many ended up leaving?
No, we don't know that, but I can only imagine that it's increased.
A couple weeks ago, Danville combined a few elementary classes. The assistant superintendent said this was, in large part, a response to the district's teacher shortage.
Just take a second to to put yourself in the shoes of these folks. We're seeing a lot of educators take leaves of absences because it's just become too much. They're burnt out, it's too stressful, and they need a break. And when that happens, then that means their colleague then has to pick up the slack, which only in turn leads that colleague to feel burned out and maybe need a break themselves. So it's really a vicious cycle.
As for Cohen, she decided to submit her vaccine card after all. This is her first full week back at school.
And through remediation, we reached the point that I had until November 10th to produce my vaccination card or start testing, or they were going to terminate me. And I wasn't willing to let that happen. I can't imagine life not being a teacher, and I can't imagine my students' lives that I've touched in the past not having had been there for them.
Now, Shanahan says without the change, the shortage is only going to get worse. She says the solution is making teaching a more attractive job. And she tells me there has been some progress. The Minimum Salary Act set a base level teacher pay salary in the state. And this year, lawmakers passed the Benefit and Wage Protection Bill. It would provide separate paid leave for COVID-related absences. Now, that one is awaiting the governor's signature. And teachers, we'd love to hear more about these issues and solutions directly from you. Email us at target3@WCIA.com. Jessica, back to you.
Interesting. All right, Renee, thank you so much. Taking a look now at the COVID numbers across